So people have said like, oh, let's go back to how our grandparents did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually would solve our plastic problem. And I do agree with that to a large extent.
Tin cans and glass bottles. Yeah.
Exactly. However, do you think we can manage going back to the good parts of our grandparents' life? Because let's be honest, they weren't all good. If women also work outside the home.
There is my issue. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Kat.
How are you?
I'm fine. We chatted a little bit before the episode started, so I'm like, what else is there to say?
Well, I mean, I think we could just say, did you lose much sleep over last week's plastic recycling episode, which we recorded several weeks ago for the record?
Yeah, it was actually like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 1000% I did.
Oh my gosh, I've been seeing it everywhere. I schooled my parents on it the other day. I was like, this is awful, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my god.
And they're like, yeah, I know. It's not a secret. Everybody knows this. It's just...
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is I didn't know how bad it was.
Right.
I think it's really easy to hear stuff and be like, oh, people might be exaggerating or turn a blind eye because it's like, I don't know, easier to just be in denial.
Well, the American life is based on complacency or busyness in your own specialized area so much that you can't concentrate on other things that are really big deals,
Right.
I mean, we're bombarded all the time with so much information in our media diet culture, that it's really hard to care about, because you feel like you have to care about everything. So it's really hard to care about like a single thing. Yeah, you get fatigue. It's like how many organizations can I be a part of or participate in, and eventually they just kind of all cancel each other out. And so this is just another one of those fatigue situations.
Totally. And you're not really making an impact if you're trying to do everything. So
yeah, I know. It's like I could be a warrior for plastic or against plastic to the exclusion of everything else.
Mm-hmm. And some people are.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of, people who are that way about various causes. And I think that's a legitimate lifestyle choice to make. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to get back into like some of the horror of it all.
Yeah.
But I did find a glimmer of hope for everybody.
Oh, goody. Are we going to end on a glimmer of hope?
Yes.
It's my favorite way to end.
I couldn't handle it without finding at least some potential chance that we're not all completely doomed.
Yay.
Yeah. Call me a positive person.
Yeah.
An optimist.
I believe that you are. And I will follow you into the sunlight or whatever it is.
Yes, exactly. But first we have to go into the depths of hell.
Yes.
So.
And before we do that, I guess we should introduce ourselves. Welcome to the podcast. This is Greening Up My Act.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, I'm Kat Cox, and that's Tiffany Verbeck.
Yep, that's me. We're two marketing writers, and we examine
green living.
Yeah, green living products and systems and things that make big promises, and we examine those promises and figure out if they're realistic or if they're green hooey, as we call them.
Which is junk, meaning marketing speak that hides its true possibilities or capabilities.
Yes. So. And we spend our days writing marketing fluff. And so we know pretty
Some
much.
Some of it's really true, okay, and really helpful.
Yeah, we just make it pretty.
Yeah.
And sound nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of this stuff in the green, quote unquote, green space is hooey. So
utter hooey.
As we've discovered, although some of it I'm surprised, like some of it is pleasantly surprising, because that's our goal. We're not trying to call everything out and find all the terrible things. We're really trying to find stuff that works for people and the environment and is better for everybody involved. Yeah. So that's our ultimate goal, is to find the good stuff.
On all fronts. Agreed.
Yep.
So last week we started down the dark path of, now we've been calling it the 4 horsemen of the recycle apocalypse, and we found out the first 3 were more like My Little Ponies. Aluminum, glass, and paper are actually not the same as what we're referring to death is plastic, right? Plastic
Yes.
is death, and it really is. And last week you covered the inauspicious beginnings, I would say, of
Yes.
personal responsibility plastic recycling, what I will call it, rather than corporate responsibility not making plastic, which would be the ideal, is finding an alternative to plastic instead of just forcing consumers to face the brunt of the damage.
Right. And putting it on our shoulders and
And
telling us
and
outright that it's our fault
yeah,
that all of this plastic waste. I mean, it's a crisis now. We're in a global plastic crisis, and
that's only
all of
set
these
to
companies
expand.
have tried to convince people like you and me that it is our fault,
Yeah,
and
just put it
it's
in the
not.
bin and you'll be fine.
It's not. We're not lazy. That's not why this is happening.
Right.
Yeah, so we kind of went into the history last week,
Mhm.
and this week I had to turn this into a two-parter. This is our first two-parter ever because it was so much,
Yeah.
and I really wanted to give it the time that it deserved. So
Yeah.
we're kind of talking today about more like where we are today and going forward, and trying to find some possible solutions.
Yeah.
So we're going to explore those. But first, I have a couple new sources
Great.
that I found since I last chatted with you, because I did a little bit more of a deep dive into a couple things. So, Greenpeace, I have like a mixed feelings about Greenpeace, but
Fair.
they do have some opinions that I agree with. So, they talk about the United States' stance on the plastics treaty, which I
Mhm.
will get into.
Ooh, there's a plastics treaty.
Yes, I'm going to get
It's
into
like
it.
non-proliferation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure. Mhm.
Yeah. No nuclear plastics in
Okay.
warheads. Yeah. And then Scientific American also talked about the plastics treaty. BBC, I use them just sort of like a general they'd had an article about should we burn or bury plastic.
Mhm.
The Week had an article, should you even bother recycling plastic? I watched a John Oliver episode. What is his show called? John Oliver?
Last week
Last
tonight.
Week Tonight, yeah. I watched one of his episodes on plastic, and I highly recommend it. And one more website is Waste Dive. They have a lot of really interesting articles that they link. So they talk about packaging legislation.
Okay.
The New Yorker had an article that came out just a couple of days ago, maybe even like 3 or 4 days ago.
Wow.
Plastics are poisoning us.
Oh boy.
I know. And so that I didn't use a whole lot, but it was a really good article, and we'll link it. So it's definitely worth a read. So I have a quick correction from last week. So the Guardian article that I cited I said that in 25 years that plastic production is supposed to triple,
Yeah.
but it's actually by 2060 is what the article.
Oh, okay.
But
Well, okay. So that's 35 years, 37 years.
it's another decade. But
Right. So great.
hey,
We might hit the goal before then.
right? Yes. Yeah. So where we are today kind of started in 2017, when maybe a lot of people know about this, but China had a more or less a ban of importing plastics. So basically, China used to take about 60% of the plastic waste exported by G7 countries. G7 is Canada, France, US, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom. So China would take that plastic in and then use it to create products. But then they got fed up, and they say that it's because they started to take environmental protection seriously,
Mm-hmm.
that they basically banned most plastic waste to come
Well,
from coming
okay.
into their country.
Mm-hmm.
So they went from 60% to like less than 10% of the world
Wow.
waste. And they say the harm, this is just ironic to me, because they say we can't take your plastics to recycle them because the harm to the groundwater and harm to the air have big economic costs. So
Right.
basically, like, our trash from here was piling up over there and hurting their environment and their economy in turn.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So this is all, I'm getting this all from the famous Financial Times article about
Right.
what this
Mhm.
Chinese policy is called the national sword policy, which is like
Oh,
so
wow, that's
so intense.
very on brand, China.
Yes,
Well done.
exactly. So this Financial Times article calls recycling an industry, this is a quote, an industry plagued by allegations of smuggling, corruption, and pollution.
Okay.
And it's suddenly been thrust into the spotlight because China was like, screw this. Like, we're not taking this crap, literal crap from you guys anymore. So that's pretty interesting. I was like, corruption and smuggling and recycling. Fascinating, because we all think, oh, recycling, it's like friendly bunnies and happy rainbows, but apparently
Right.
not. Yeah, so this created a global crisis in plastic waste when China was like, no, thank you. So why is this such a big problem? I mean, 60% I told you, but about half of the plastic that's intended for recycling is traded overseas.
Right.
And California exports 2/3
Oh,
of their
wow.
plastic.
Okay.
So that was mind-blowing to me because I did not realize that I didn't realize that that's what was happening. It's a global issue. It's not just, yeah, we think about our landfills, but it's truly not our landfills that are
Right. It's everywhere.
being
Yeah.
impacted. So the plastic, instead of going to China, it went to Malaysia.
Mhm.
Malaysia became the new biggest importer of plastic. So all these other countries were like, hey, maybe we should try this. Thailand, in this article, they talked about lots of falsified customs declarations, police raids, corruption,
Oh my
illegal
god.
processing plants. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yep. In Vietnam, it says bales of plastic piled up at ports. And so the country declared that it wouldn't become the landfill of the world and stopped issuing licenses for recycling imports.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this crime drama.
I know. It's
We are now a
really
true crime podcast.
crazy.
We're gonna have to be yeah.
It's really crazy. And I think Malaysia is still the largest importer. But what happens is there's open air burning. I think this was on the John Oliver episode where they basically just burn this because there's just too much of it.
Yeah.
So either people are trying to run sort of illegitimate recycling processing plants that have no environmental restrictions on them at all, or they're just burning it in the air. And people are talking about how it's like, it hurts their eyes, it hurts their head, it's
Well, yeah. I mean, and
toxic.
it's like burning tires, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just all there. And the John Oliver episode had some footage from, I can't remember where they might have been in Thailand, but it's really wild because the guy pulled out bags from like Texas or like I don't remember where exactly,
Yeah.
but somewhere like Vermont or something. And so even this was a problem even before China decided to ban imports, because even before then it just made it apparent, but even before then only 10% of the plastic in the US was being recycled.
Mhm. That's still yeah.
So that just made it super obvious. So where are we today? A little bit about where we are today. So I mentioned the Plastics Treaty.
Mhm.
So the 2024 International Plastics Treaty is a current work in progress,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
kind of exciting, right?
Well, I mean,
'Cause
yeah. I was gonna say, except for the country that recently pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords.
well, so on that note, so this is the whole treaty is a global effort to reduce plastic pollution among 175 nations. So it's a huge endeavor,
Well,
global.
yeah.
And the US is involved, but unfortunately Biden is not really fulfilling or following through with his promise to,
Hmm.
focus on climate change,
Mhm.
because the US only supports voluntary reductions rather than forced
Forced.
reductions.
Right, because we would be I mean, it would cripple our economy. It would.
Theoretically,
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
countries are doing it
Yeah.
and they're figuring out a way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we only, and it's just an industry thing. It's just trying to make sure that the big oil and big plastic guys are happy.
Yeah.
So we also focus heavily on plastics recycling. So we think, like, as always, recycling is this magic wand that we can wave. Turns out it's not.
Nope.
Yeah. So Greenpeace says that the US needs to focus on reduction and widespread systems of refill and reuse.
Okay.
And package-free solutions, which I wholeheartedly agree with.
Yeah.
Because, like, you order something from Amazon and you're like, why do I need
40 ounces of plastic on a single,
yes,
lighter or something? Yeah.
It's like 6 bags wrapped around one single pencil.
Yeah.
You're like, really? I think the pencil is going to be okay.
I think it'll make it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're saying, so Greenpeace says we need the Biden administration to listen to the people, not the big consumer brands nor the petrochemical industry.
Right. Who has the money?
Yes. So there was a report from Lund University that said, while governments are committing to action on climate change and have signed up to initiatives tackling global plastic pollution, massive investments are being made to expand production capacity in the petrochemical sector, not least in the Middle East, China, and the USA.
All right.
Yeah. There is a petition you can sign if you're into that kind of thing from Greenpeace. I signed it. I was like, you know what? I agree with this.
It's the least you could do.
Yeah, we'll link it in case anybody's interested in signing it. So a couple of things I wanted to give you guys a heads up on was if you're Googling like plastic recycling, plastic waste, in plastic pollution, you're going to come upon a couple of things. One of them is called the Alliance to End Plastic Waste.
Okay.
This looks like a nonprofit. It looks legitimate. They're funding all of these different cleanup efforts and all this crazy stuff and recycling, blah, blah, blah. They're definitely pushing recycling. So I had to do some digging, and I found out pretty quickly that this is a corporate group with members from Exxon, Shell, Dow, Chevron, Phillips, Chemical, etc.
Our favorites. All of our favorites.
Exactly. This is basically like the most greenwashy of greenwashed I've ever seen.
Well, okay. You don't think there's any chance that it's them taking responsibility on a level? You think it really is in bad faith?
Yes.
Okay. Fair.
Yes, I do. Because first off, they're pushing for recycling.
Okay.
And
once again, it's recycling.
Yeah, plastic. They're funding. I saw that they were funding like student recycling something or other.
Oh, okay. Yeah, make the kids do it.
Yeah, and it's like that's not the solution here because it's just not for so many reasons, as we have mentioned. It's not the solution. I mean, I would like to say, I'm sure there were some people who aren't completely corrupt and evil working at these corporations that want to help
and care.
Of course. But I think probably the people at the top, no, they're not. Why would they bother?
Unless if it's making them money. Yeah.
Exactly. And if they can get away with greenwashing it and pretending or saying, because that's what they always do. That's what I've been reading is like any company pretty much will say, oh yeah, we have all these green initiatives. And then when they're pressured to do it, and then once the pressure lays off, they completely abandon them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not that there aren't good companies out there, but a lot of the time that's what happens. So yeah, I don't buy it at all.
That's fair.
So just if you run into Alliance to End Plastic Waste, just know what you're looking at. You can have fully a different opinion than me, but at least know who's funding it. So is recycling plastic environmentally better than producing new plastic? This is the big question, right? I keep shitting on recycling plastic. Why am I shitting on it? Okay. The answer to that question is no, for 2 reasons, and probably probably more reasons than that. So the first one is Greenpeace warns This is based on, this isn't just Greenpeace, by the way. This is from a Guardian article, but they do warn that plastics recycling shouldn't be included in a 2024 International Plastics Treaty.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know why I said it like they're just reading it. You know about the Plastics Treaty.
Mm-hmm.
So it shouldn't be included in that plastics treaty because recycling makes the plastic more toxic.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it causes higher amounts of these toxins to be concentrated inside this plastic. So there's higher amounts of things like flame retardants and benzene.
Yikes.
Yeah, etc. Other things too. And so what Greenpeace says is plastics are inherently incompatible with a circular economy. And I'll get into a little bit about a circular economy a little bit later because I didn't really know what that meant.
Right.
And a second reason is that breaking plastic down to recycle it creates microplastics. And microplastics are not good for a number of reasons. I didn't really understand. I had heard the term 1,000 times, but I didn't really understand why they were so bad. But it's basically like they get into everything. And as mentioned, full of toxins. So they found, one study found microplastics in a placenta.
Oh my God. A human placenta?
Like a human placenta.
Oh my God.
Yes. So the exposure can happen before you're even born.
Mm.
Yeah, and I just think about all of Charlie's plastic bottles that we use. My God. It's fine. But anyway, so when you recycle it, this is a UK study says that anywhere between 6% to 13% of the plastic processed could end up being released into water or the air as microplastics.
Jesus. Okay.
So, and like I mentioned, you can recycle plastic 1 to 2 times. What was it? 1 to 4, less than a handful. 1 to 3, I think. It was like, not very many times. And then it's got to go in the landfill anyway.
Right. So what's the point?
Kind of. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Actually, very soon, because I also looked into Dutch, like the Netherlands, because they're very proud of their recycling program. And I was like, is it actually as good as we think it is or as people think it is? And it turns out because I remember I said I went and everything was covered in plastic in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Just like here.
Yeah.
And let's see, what did I look at? So I looked at a couple different sources, but all of them were Dutch in, obviously written in English.
Of course.
Yeah. I didn't learn Dutch for this, but so just over half of plastic packaging used in the Netherlands in 2018 was recycled, which is better than the US, but a lot, possibly 50%, is incinerated.
Mm-hmm. I
couldn't find the exact number on that, but a lot is incinerated. And this was even what my friend's neighbor told me, that like if we don't recycle it, we burn it and use it to create energy.
Okay. Like pyrolysis or whatever it's called.
I don't know what it's called, but it basically harnesses the energy.
Okay.
It turns out this is a super inefficient way to create energy. Mm-mm. And it has about 25% efficiency compared to 55% efficiency for gas-fired power plants.
Oh, okay.
So it's like less than half.
Okay.
And when coal is phased out for generating electricity, incineration of unrecycled waste will be the most CO2 intensive form of generation.
Which isn't great to say that once coal is gone, you'll be the worst thing for the environment, because coal is like the worst.
Right. Oof. Yes. It's being second is not
cool.
Yeah. You don't want that silver medal.
Mm-mm. So,
and in this BBC article that I read, the UK's environmental minister, Therese Coffey, I'm not sure how you say your name, mm-hmm. She told the Commons, in environmental terms, it's generally better to bury plastic than to burn it. Okay. And this is a debate, right?
Yeah.
But she's saying that burying plastic is like a form of carbon capture.
Yeah.
Because it's all going to be in there forever.
Yeah.
Literally forever.
Forever.
So it's
Yeah.
if you're thinking about like I wouldn't say in environmental terms, I would say in greenhouse gas terms.
Right. Yeah. Which, yeah. But it's a different concept, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem that I'm running into. And what I'm having a really hard time with is like one thing impacts another. And it's like you can make progress in one way and totally take 18 steps back in the other,
Yeah.
the other side. So it's really hard, but everything's connected. But I found that
Yes.
really interesting. And I was like, I'm so sorry, Dutch friends, but you're not as great as you think you are. And I think we should probably own up to that. Not to mention, remember I said it's a global problem, the Plastic Soup Foundation, which I believe is also Dutch, but
Okay.
just a website that I found, says the Netherlands is the largest exporter of plastic waste in Europe.
Wow. And they're a tiny country.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So they're having the same ostrich head in the sand problem we are.
Yeah, and it sucks because I was like, maybe they have some solutions.
We
Maybe
love the
they have
Dutch. Yeah.
something. I mean, obviously they're doing better in terms of like overall waste production
Yeah.
because the
Management.
US
Yeah.
is not doing well, but
No.
they have a different mindset too. It is very much like reduction first, but
Yeah.
they're not like, I don't know, they're not perfect. And yeah, there's still issues.
Yeah.
So that was kind of sad, but it's fine.
The Dutch have been demoted.
I know. One last thing, and then I'm going to get into my granola rating.
Okay.
But I'm going to do my granola rating before I go into like, where do we go from here?
Okay.
And we're at 30 minutes. Hopefully this doesn't take all night.
Yeah.
But I think this is worth devoting some time to. So basically, one last thing. AP talks about chemical recycling, which is a different way. You use heat or chemical solvents to break down plastics, and it turns into like an oil-like mixture or the basic chemicals. And of course, industry leaders say that the mixture can be made back into plastic pellets and that it's better than any other way that we recycle plastic.
Yeah.
But environmentalists say it's a distraction. So it's unknown. That's a very new thing. So maybe that will help in the future. I don't have that much faith, but someone that I was reading said we can't rule anything out, and that's true.
Yeah.
We'll keep on keeping on, I guess. My granola rating. Okay.
I have a feeling I know what it's going to be.
Do you? Because are you going to say 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 0. I mean,
well, that's the thing. I had to go with 0.
We don't even have a word for that in our granola rating.
But I found one.
Oh, okay.
I'm calling it waterlogged.
I like that. It's like it's basically the the great granola patch floating in the ocean.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so if you are new here, we rate each system or product on a scale of 1 to 5 granolas, and obviously crunchy granola is better than soggy granola. So 1 is soggy, but this is worse than soggy.
Wow.
It's absolutely waterlogged because 1, the plastics and oil industry has lied to us for decades, and plastic recycling is not sustainable economically or environmentally. Number 2, the purpose of the plastics recycling industry is to prop up the industries to continue creating single-use plastic and getting their products on the shelf.
Right.
It shouldn't be on the consumer to solve, and these companies are making money and taking 0 responsibility.
100%.
3, we can only recycle plastics a few times, maybe only once. Number 4, it's a global issue. Western countries are shipping our plastic waste to less developed countries and polluting the hell out of their land and water, contributing to the corruption, creating a black market, and not taking responsibility for any of our shit. So that's my sort of TLDR, too long didn't read, granola rating.
Okay.
For everybody who just wants to skip ahead.
Cheaters.
So, right. The question is, where do we go from here?
Yes. Okay.
Buckle up. No, you don't have to. So reduce, reuse, recycle in that order.
Mm-hmm.
I had my friend Julia asked me, we were talking about this as I was doing my research and crying. No, but she asked if I'm going to keep recycling my plastic, and I couldn't answer her because I was like, I don't know if it's worth it. Luckily, John Oliver has a helpful answer.
Oh, good.
And he says, even recycling plastic, while it may be 90% more pointless than you assumed, can still have modest environmental benefits.
Fair. Okay.
And the week that article I use clarifies to say if you sort the right kinds of plastics into your recycling bin.
Okay. Yep. I believe that.
Yeah.
Quit with the wish cycling.
Yes, exactly. So my friend Julia had a really good idea that she said it should be on our governments to stop offering plastics recycling and call it out on its bullshit. But like so many people are bought into it, or at least plastics recycling in that single stream, throw everything in a bin kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
But so many people are bought into it, and I don't think people could handle it if they couldn't recycle, or at least fake recycle.
You feel
plastic.
weird. Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So the proposed solutions, there are 1, 2, 3. Okay, so really 3 proposed solutions. And one is my favorite, but we'll start with the circular economy. And I'm not saying this is bad. To be honest, I didn't have enough time because this was a really big episode. I didn't have enough time to research fully into the circular economy. So I just wanted to really give a definition, but this is like one proposed solution. So it's basically like making, like it sounds, making a circle out of the use of resources. So right now we take resources from the natural world, use them, and dispose of them. In a circular economy, we reuse the resources rather than consuming them. So we create reusable plastic and redesign plastic with recycling. I mean, this has recycling in mind. I don't think that's helpful, but
well, I mean, it was the idea of being able to reuse it. That makes sense.
Yes, and we design we design our technology or our products to make repairs easy and reusing as much existing material as possible.
Yeah. Upcycling. I mean, but even more technologically advanced than that. We like reverse engineer our plastic
Right.
to be recyclable, basically. Like with minimal processing, you know.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
that or just make it like not everything has to be thrown away.
Yeah.
So the circular economy is sort of its own thing, and everything can kind of relate to each other. But one other idea on reducing the amount of plastic we use is to make it a personal decision and reduce our personal usage.
Right. Back on the consumer.
Yes. And so I found this blog and book called My Plastic Free Life. And this person started the blog just as a personal thing, and then it's really kind of exploded. And they give us 100 steps that we can take. So they say, like, choose a few to get started and take time to build, like carry your own takeout container, carry a water bottle, bring your own produce bags to the grocery store.
Yeah, these are all really actually very good ideas.
No, I know they are.
And easy. You just have to remember.
Right. So then buy bread that doesn't come in plastic bags, get milk in returnable glass bottles, DIY your cleaners. We can help you with that.
We know. We just a whole season about that.
Yes. So the problem with that, and it's not that I disagree with any of that, and I had the same feeling when I was reading this book, How to Give Up Plastic. And it was saying basically like throw out all your, I mean, this is a paraphrase and I'm not even trying to insult the author or accuse him of anything. It's really just a commentary on the general consensus is like throw out all your plastic stuff and buy new stuff to replace it. And there are multiple problems with that, but one of the big problems, and this New Yorker article that I just read from a couple of days ago highlighted it with a Danish Environmental Protection Agency study from 2018 This study looked at different kinds of shopping bags. So they compared plastic bags to paper bags to cloth bags.
Mm-hmm.
And they analyzed the life cycle impacts in terms of like environment, climate change, ozone depletion, human toxicity, ecosystem toxicity, resource depletion. They looked at all sorts of stuff. And it turns out, in order for other kinds of bags to be to have a lower environmental impact than a plastic bag, a
Mm-hmm.
paper bag would have to be used 43 times.
There's no way it could survive
That's what
more
I'm
than
thinking.
3. Yeah, okay.
A cotton tote would have to be used 7,100 times. 7,100 times to offset all of the environmental indicators.
That's a plastic tote.
Cotton tote.
Oh, a cotton tote.
Cotton.
Wow. Like, you think of cotton as good.
I know.
I
We
have
all do.
so many cotton
Oh my
totes.
God, everybody gives them out. I'm like, please
I
stop giving
know.
me a freaking tote bag. I
I
have
have
so
like
many.
a stash in my trunk that like I will take grocery shopping with other people because I'm like, you're going to forget your bags. And guess what? I've got them.
Smart.
Yeah.
See? And that contributes to your 7,100 times.
Yeah, I know. Because it's all my friends use them too.
No, but the good news is that's to offset all of the environmental indicators together.
Okay.
But you only have to use it 52 times to offset the climate change portion of it. So if we're really focusing on climate change, which is sort of personally what I want to focus on,
Yeah.
52 times is attainable.
That's once a week.
Right. That is exactly once
That's
a
grocery
week.
shopping. I mean, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, but I found that so interesting because it's like I knew that I had heard that in the past. Like I talked about, producing paper takes a shitload of water. It uses chemicals. It does all this
Takes down
stuff.
forests.
It
Yeah.
takes on for like yeah. So I found that really interesting, and throwing out all your plastic stuff and replacing it with non-plastic stuff, I'm not necessarily sure that's the right direction you want to go.
Probably better to just use your plastic stuff again. Be very careful about what plastic stuff you get and reuse it.
Right. That's the thing. And it's so hard to do. Like, I think I told you I almost had a panic attack grocery shopping because I was like,
what can you get? Yeah.
This isn't possible.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. So this New Yorker article says is to make a significant dent in plastic waste, it will probably require not just substitution, but elimination. And that means elimination of stuff, not just replacing that stuff, but eliminating
just
it.
Not needing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you walking around your grocery store, you can only use your arms. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but
well, yeah. I mean, okay, well, or you only you grow your own food,
right.
Then you don't need plastic
don't use the
transit bins.
store.
Yeah. I mean, and that's rough. That's it's not sustainable for everyone, but that's an option. Yeah.
Yes. So then this New Yorker article says if much of contemporary life is wrapped up in plastic and the result of this is that we are poisoning our kids, ourselves, and our ecosystems, then contemporary life may need to be rethought. But I have a question for you. I wanted to get your take on this.
Okay.
So people have said like, oh, let's go back to how our grandparents did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually would solve our plastic problem. And I do agree with that to a large extent.
Tin cans and glass bottles. Yeah.
Exactly. However, do you think we can manage going back to the good parts of our grandparents' life? Because let's be honest, they weren't all good. If women also work outside the home.
There is my issue. Convenience. It's a thing we talk about all the time. I saw an argument on Facebook once because I'm old and I use Facebook. Thank you.
Me too.
About how bad Amazon is economically, package-wise, But someone said, look, I'm a working mom and my husband works. And when I run out of something and I can just click a button on Amazon and it's there the next day and I don't have to do the brain work of shopping for it or, that's worth something. So you're right. I think we don't live in an economic situation where you can have a person in your home who is committed to doing all of this literal labor.
Oh, absolutely.
Thoughtfulness, the mindfulness. I mean, we all kind of hoped the pandemic would be this giant shift in our reality about what we value.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just been this drive. I think the whole, well, you got to come back into the office is this drive by wealthy individuals, wealthy corporations to try and get things back to status quo. Because if we don't consume and we don't drive and we don't work 90 hours a week and never see our children, we can't create this consumer culture that drives our economy and really does drive at the bottom of it. I hate to say it, but our standard of living.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a society where 100 years ago you needed a cook to cook all your meals, or and that would be a stay-at-home mom in the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
because you needed someone to manage the household like that. And what we have now is fast food or plastic wrapped things at the grocery store you can just pop in the microwave.
Yep.
And that is to support our lifestyle. It's one less thing we have to think of. We all have a chef for ourselves in some sense in McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. Or like even Home Chef
Yeah.
or those like,
Yeah.
pre-ordered
So
subscriptions.
and it is kind of, I hate to get on a social justice train on this, but it does punish the poor to say that it is their job. You need, as an individual contributor to society, we need to return to these inconvenient life modes. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that a person who works 3 jobs at minimum wage could ever have the time to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
I agree that it punishes women. It punishes lower income women, single moms. I mean, that again, we're asking the people with the least resources to do the most work again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I see on Instagram a lot, like women who have chosen to start homesteading and working at home, working on their home and just sort of like baking bread from scratch and all these things. And it's like all sounds so idyllic, but it's just like,
It's a sacrifice. I mean,
yeah. And I think about it when I'm going through the grocery store. I'm like, okay, if I didn't want to have plastic, let's say,
bread.
okay, bread, we'll say bread.
So I'm going to throw it out there. My twin sister, who, is my green living
Mm-hmm.
goddess, she has 3 kids. She works a full-time job as a rocket scientist. So does her husband. And they bake their own bread.
Mm-hmm.
And he brews his own beer.
Yeah.
And they grow a garden. And, they buy in bulk so they don't have as much plastic. And, all these things they make. It's very intentional.
Yeah.
And they
Right.
don't have any more time than I do,
Yeah. But then you think about like, okay, tortilla chips, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Okay.
could theoretically get cornmeal in a paper sack, roll out
Yeah.
my own tortillas, slice them up and
Yeah.
cut them, or just not eat tortilla chips, but like I like tortilla chips.
I like chips and salsa, man. It's one of my jams for
Exactly.
sure.
And then fry them up and make them. But that with every single product, like
I know.
cereal, I can never have cereal again.
Pasta,
Pasta, I have to make it by hand.
macaroni and cheese every time. No.
Yeah, it's like you can do that with one thing, like make bread, make beer, whatever. And if that's fun for you, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's not making her own tortilla chips as well
No.
as her
No.
own. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's
It's
so
sacrifices you
hard.
make, and it's for sure. We do live in a world, that's another thing. How often did your grandmother eat tortilla chips?
Right. Probably
So,
never.
yeah, or like, I have macaroni and cheese out of a box,
It's true. It
which is
is
one of
kind of
life's great
ridiculous.
pleasures. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is kind of ridiculous that I expect to have all of my luxuries at all times because I don't want to go without tortilla chips.
Yeah. But there is something to be said for, on some level, you have to weigh what luxuries matter to you. On some level, we have to be willing to sacrifice luxuries and conveniences now before they are forced away from us because of unsustainability of these luxuries, of these luxurious lifestyles.
Yeah, maybe. But it's
That,
also like, would I have to sew my own clothes also? Would I have to,
at some
it's
point,
just, there's
yeah,
so much into it that
yeah,
is convenient in our lives.
yeah.
But I just really wanted your take on that because I was like, oh my God, it's just such a different world.
Yeah, it's a complete mind shift, and it's, yeah. I'm not ready to give up Amazon.
Right.
I'm not.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is like none of this can sustainably in our lives be an all of a sudden decision. I think
Yeah,
everything has to be gradual, but at the same time, and this goes back to my third and small glimmer of hope. My third proposed
Okay.
solution is it's not all on us and it shouldn't have to be.
No.
So I learned from John Oliver
Mm-hmm.
that there is such a thing as it's called extended producer responsibility, or also known as the polluter pays principle.
Ooh,
Right?
yes.
I was so excited. Okay, so the idea is that it makes companies pay for the pollution that they create. Which,
That kind of like a
by the
carbon
way,
tax, right? Like, isn't that?
yeah. So the idea is to make companies pay for pollution,
Mm-hmm.
and it forces companies to either create the infrastructure and the markets to recycle the waste that they create,
Mm-hmm.
or ban these companies from creating the products to begin with.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I think economic drivers, you know, there would always be loopholes, would be my problem. I'm just such a cynic about our culture,
No, I know.
the techno feudalism that we live in, that those with money are always going to find a way to skirt these things and sell us a
Mhm.
bag of goods that is not good for us.
Well, hey, it's something.
It
I
is
mean, it's at
something.
least, like,
It's an
getting the
idea.
conversation going of, like,
Yeah.
maybe these companies should have more responsibility in the game. So
Yeah. If they're putting it out there, they should, they should have to lie in the bed they make. Take
exactly.
care of these
And
illegitimate children they're making. That sounds bad.
so many
Strike
illegitimate
that.
children.
Strike that. Something wrong with illegitimate children, okay? I was just,
Right. So
you got
many
to take responsibility for them, though.
unclaimed children. So much
Mhm.
unpaid child support. We'll call
There
it
it
that.
is. Unpaid child support. Yes. Deadbeat dad companies.
Yes,
Deadbeat
exactly.
parent companies.
So it turns out that the US is one of the only developed countries without an extended producer responsibility. It's also called
And again,
EPR.
it's that
So,
voluntary, our idea that people are going
yes.
to do the right thing because they're supposed to and not because they're
I
being
don't even
punished
think
otherwise.
yeah, I don't even think it's that. I think it's more that there's too much pressure from the plastics industry, from the oil industry, that our politicians feel it's not even that we have faith that they're gonna do the right thing. It's more like, if we made this mandatory, I'm not gonna get reelected.
Right.
So, yeah. All right. So here's the thing. So some of the Democrats are actually making some moves, including Bernie Sanders, who I don't know how you feel about him, but he's
I
still
have.
he's still out there. So there's the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which was introduced in the Senate in 2021 from Bernie Sanders and a bunch of other Democrats. He's the only one that I recognize. And it's only been introduced. So it's like still in the works. 2021. It's been 2 years, people.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't gone anywhere. It doesn't mean it won't, but it's something to keep an eye on because it seems like a solution. It seems like an option to at least improve the situation. But as states do, when
Mm-hmm.
the federal government fails to act, 4 states enacted their own laws, their own EPR laws:
Mm-hmm.
Maine,
Okay.
Oregon, Colorado, and California.
Okay.
So they were like, screw it, we're just putting our own laws in place. Illinois, Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, Hawaii, and Washington are all at least discussing it, but it may be stalled. But they're still chatting about it, at least. I looked at Maryland, where I live, and we have a Democrat for
Mm-hmm.
governor, but
Mm-hmm.
he chose to study it rather than implement it.
Okay.
So
So he
he's
gets
like,
street cred, all of his cake, and eat it too.
pretty much. He's like, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to take a look at this. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, how about you just read like 4 pages of a brief and
Mm-hmm.
then decide? Ugh. So it's an option. It's like a maybe here. I don't know, but I'm going to keep an eye on it for sure. So, like, look up EPR laws coming through the pipeline in your state, because
I'm gonna be very disappointed when I look them up in
you are, I'm
Texas.
sure. I don't know about Texas, but I have a feeling. But that doesn't
Hmm.
mean it's impossible. There's always hope.
Okay, that looks like there was a Bill text, an act relating to a program for the recycling of computer equipment. Okay.
Yeah.
Dell. Oh, it's a computer recycling bill that Dell backed, actually, in 2007, but I don't know.
I know. Yeah, I think I read that EPR, some of it does focus on
plastics.
Tech
Yeah.
stuff. Tech waste.
I mean, because that is a huge polluter that we don't talk about.
Huge problem, yeah.
Yeah. Apple.
Yeah, God. So, that's it.
Okay. It was only an hour.
Yeah, that's not bad.
No. I mean, and there's some hope there. I mean, I agree. I think the tide is turning, and I think the secret's out. Nobody that I have spoken to, and I do live in a little educated bubble, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody that I've spoken to is shocked that plastic recycling is green hooey.
Mm-hmm. I was shocked to the extent
that I think that may be the case, but I think the tide is turning for sure.
Yeah,
people know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think anybody's using plastic and feeling good about it.
No.
I mean,
it's
maybe
the new
some people
smoking.
don't give a shit, but
yeah, some people don't. But it's
people who do care. I don't think they're like, oh, this is fine.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you. This is actually a really great segue into next week's topic.
Oh, what is it? I forget.
Eco-friendly junk collection. We're looking into Ridwell.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this one too. I think it'll be a nice palate cleanser.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
We really needed it.
We do.
After our waterlogged plastics.
Yes. Oh, the grossest of all gross granola ratings. That is by far the worst we've had so far. So
if anything's worse than that, man, we're going to have to come up with a real doozy of a word.
Yeah.
Also, please, God, don't let anything be worse than
I hope not. Yeah. Plastic. We've hit the bottom. There's only uphill from here.
Thank God. So yeah, hopefully it was helpful. I think it's definitely helped open my eyes. And I think the biggest takeaway would be like, try not to have a panic attack in the grocery store, because I think it's all very gradual. It's all very slow.
Yeah.
Look up those EPR laws in your state and try to push them through. I truly don't know how that happens, but
write a letter. Get your friends to write a letter.
Yeah, to your Congress people. Your representatives.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's like, this is all that I want in my life. Like, if that happened, I would die a happy woman. Truly. Because it's always
Ladies and gentlemen,
me.
You've heard it here. The way to make Tiffany Verbeck happy is to get this passed. So
please, God, because it's like, I've always been so frustrated at the fact that companies just get away with murder.
Yeah. Literal planet murder.
Yeah.
It's the Death Star. Okay, well.
All right. Sweet.
If you like our content or hate our content, please follow us. Click that follow button wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe or leave us a rating. It's a great way to let other people know who we are. And my mom can only do so much telling of her friends. Thanks, Mom.
There's only so many reviews that one phone can handle.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Reviews are so helpful for a podcast. So
100%.
Please, if you like us, maybe if you hate us, just go away. Don't leave a 1-star review. But no. I mean, if we got enough 1-star reviews, maybe it would be like shooting the moon, you know, and people would be like, what is this horrible podcast? But I don't think the algorithm works that way. So the algorithm has no sense of humor. It only shows high-star ratings. So if you hate us, give us a 5-star rating so you can get all your friends to hate us too. Look, there you go. Exactly.
Reverse psychology.
Recommend us to everyone. Totally.
Yeah, please.
Love it. All right. Well, I will talk to you next week. I'm excited to hear about Ridwell.
Yeah. Can't wait to talk about it. Thanks, Tiff.
Okay. Bye.